late one night to buy some JB Weld to fix my overbite. I headed back to the hardware section, talked to a pimple-faced punk in his prime. I said, can you help me, son? He said, take a number, stand in line. Now he's got busted chops 'cause I busted 'em. I laid him out like a low-class bum. I used his pizza face to wax the floor. The manager yelled at me as I walked out the door. I said, don't bust my chops or I'll bust yours. Now it was getting on toward supper time. I went into Hardee's, there was no line. I heard they flame broil everything. Could this be true, a hillbilly's dream? Behind the counter, a greasy pair of fry guys. They were laughing at me as I filled a beverage lid of precious red ketchup, that's what I did. I told a joke to ease their minds. They said, get out of here, dude, you're wasting our time. Now they've got busted chops 'cause I busted 'em. I played their faces like the bongo drums. Just for kicks, I topped 'em off. I hosed them down with the special sauce. Just so you know, I'm not your preferred customer. Don't bust my chops or I'll bust yours. After a breakfast of ham and eggs, my car won't start, it's on its last legs. I pushed it down to the service lot. They asked me what was wrong, I told them what was not. All that was wrong was the fuel pump. When I got the bill, they took me for a chump. The bill was higher than the value of my car. I said, hey buddy, you pushed me way too far. Now he's got busted chops 'cause I busted 'em. I rearranged his face with a set of brake drums. I checked his oil, if you know what I mean. He was a quart low, so I used Valvoline. I pinned him in 3 using the car door. Don't bust my chops or I'll bust yours. All my chop busting got around town. It wasn't too long before I heard the siren sound. The patrolman said, get out of that rig, then you won't think you're so big. As he walked up to my car door, he said, what are you busting chops on my beat for? He went to bust his chops, but he busted mine more. Now I've got busted chops 'cause he's busted 'em. Let's just say I can no longer chew bubble gum. When he said the words body cavity search, I knew something was gonna hurt. He buffed his car to a shine using my face, not before he sprayed my eyes with mace. He sent me to the big house with all those bums. Now they've got busted chops 'cause I busted 'em.
Valvoline, that's a good brand.
Now we're going. Do it again.
Hey, I was gonna wear my corduroy cowboy hat, but I couldn't get it down. So I was looking for a trucker hat. I couldn't find one either. So the coonskin cap didn't seem to fit. But yeah, the country, nice. That's why we're on the same page with our podcast number 2 coming at you live from the junction with the Hillbilly Junction Boys. As always, I'm your less attractive, less nimble host, Biff Bobcat Rogers.
I guess that leaves me as the more attractive, more nimble, although I don't really believe that's true, other co-host, Bud Catfish Dickerson, Jason Anderson, and we are back. We're back with episode 2. This is Busted Chops.
Yeah, so I was gonna tell you a story. A funny thing happened to me today after work. So I walked into Walmart. It was late one night. I wanted some JB Weld to fix my overbite. You know that? JB Weld's good for everything. So I headed back to the hardware section, and do you know who I saw? A pimple-faced punk in his prime.
Yeah.
I said, can you help me, son? And do you know what that little punk said?
Take a number, stand in line.
Yeah. So do you know what he's got now?
He's got busted chops.
Because I busted him. Yeah. So by this point, Bud, they've already heard the song "Busted Chops," right?
That's right. Yeah. We won't do this at every episode, but that's the format of this podcast. You will have listened to Busted Chops by now, and you'll have heard the song, and now we talk about the song, kind of the writing process, some of the stories behind it, and just kind of reminisce and look back on some of the things that made us the people that we are and why we sing some of these crazy songs.
As I'm looking here, I notice a few similarities, but also some things that are odd. I notice that your headset is clearly built for an adult, and is far cooler than mine. Like like my headset, yeah, this came from Walmart, and it was like the kids thing. I mean, it doesn't even cover my ears, and I don't think I have that big of ears. But just
yeah, you don't have the bat wings that go all the way down your neck. I think you can probably see, listener. Well, listeners can't see, but viewers can see that. No earlobes. I don't know if
he can literally pull his neck down here and wiggle his ears.
Yeah, and so like those wingsuits that you can jump off cliffs and fly with, right there. This is the prototype. It doesn't work. It doesn't work to jump off buildings, but it's the prototype.
So I'll be quite honest. I don't always read or prepare for the script, so that way it's more like completely off the cuff. That's my approach. But like what Bud was saying, this song that we're going to be talking about is called Busted Chops. And a lot of our songs come from just funny expressions like we hear at one time and we're like, 5 minutes later we have a song to that. We have other podcasts coming, but like a common expression, is like, oh, this is stuff you need to know. We have a song about that. Like, hey, you got to hang in there. You just got to roll with the punches. We wrote a song about that called Rolling with the Punches. So I was just kind of thinking about that, and I don't know, Bud, how you wanted to start this one. Did you just want to start about how Busted Chops came to be? Is that what you were thinking?
Well, yeah. I mean, you have a couple show notes there. I know you like to shoot from the hip, but check your show notes. I had a little back and forth prepared there.
Okay, let me find those show notes. Give me a minute. Fill this dead air time, Bud.
Well, it isn't dead air time. We're brothers, like we've said before, but we are very different in some ways. And Russell's very good at improv and shooting from the hip, and I'm good at that, but not as good. I like to prepare a little bit, and so I've written show notes for each of our podcasts just to kind of get the ball rolling. And now you might be thinking to yourself, does Russell have access to the show notes? He must not, because he didn't look at them. He barely knows they're there. He has access to them. He gets the link and he knows they're there.
All right. So yeah, in our neck of the woods, you have to apply some elbow grease to get the ball rolling. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
All right.
Just read the cue cards.
Don't.
All right, so we're going to edit all this crap out. Let's start over.
I like
back and forth. The paragraph breaks means that you talk, then I talk, then you talk, then I talk.
I gotcha. So okay. Yeah, I mean, I like our play on idioms here. So we'll take this from the top. So here we are coming at you with our second podcast.
We can. All the stuff we did before is fine.
Okay.
Now we'll just do this now.
All right. So I'm going to take it from the top.
Yeah.
In our neck of the woods, you have to apply some elbow grease to get the ball rolling. Or, you get behind the 8 ball. Don't worry, because the ball's in your court. But you might have to hit below the belt if you want to get it in the ballpark. There are plenty of fish in the sea, so they say. So hold your horses, and it's going to get down to the wire.
We need to get down to bare bones soon. It feels like we're running around with our heads cut off, and this really gets my goat. I'd like to pick your brain and make sure you know the score.
Yeah, give it your best shot and get your ducks in a row so you'll hit the mark.
I think we should talk about the elephant in the room. Why are you busting my chops with all this monkey business?
Yes.
Everyone has heard a lot of these phrases before, and as Russell talked about just a couple minutes ago, there are phrases that we've heard and that we've just taken the ball and ran with. That's a phrase right there. And one of those phrases, Russell, you want to tell them what it is?
Yeah, it's called busting my chops. And so, we went to college at Chadron, Nebraska. Chadron State, go Eagles.
That's right.
Let's see there. There you go. Yep. I went to Chadron State, and all I got was this silly T-shirt. But anyhow, yeah, I did. I'm a teacher, and we did our student teaching, and so a group of us, we were carpooling, and there's this one guy that rode with me and my other counterparts, and we'd ask him how his day was. He was like a high school teacher, student teaching in high school, and he's like, it's like those kids, they get kind of mouthy, but he's like, I'd have to bust their chops a little bit, and then they would toe their line. And he said it like 5 or 6 more times on the ride home, and like I'm just cracking up because it's hilarious, but he means it in a serious way. And if you saw this guy, I'm pretty sure there isn't a chop that he was ever able to actually bust. So, of course, like when I get back home, I tell Jason, I'm like, hey, here's what he's talking about. He's like, busting chops. So, that's how Busted Chops came to be a song, because it's like we just sat down and started writing, and 5 minutes later we had the song Busted Chops, and talking about chop busting. And
yeah, and so you've already heard the song, but I mean basically what I've kind of decided as I look back on the song, and as I was kind of playing around going through our songbook, and here a while ago, and I pulled that song out. I pulled Busted Chops out, and I noticed that we kind of we wrote this song like we were a 65-year-old man angry at the deli or something, because every scenario has us majorly overreacting to a fairly normal normal problem. I think we've all dealt with bad service, in places like Russell talked about. He read the opening line there, the J.B. Weld part, and there's always, doesn't matter where you go, there's always a pimple-faced punk that doesn't want to help you. Matter of fact, some of us have probably been that pimple-faced punk that didn't want to help you.
Yeah, and one of the things that we find and get inspiration from, are our parents and people we know, and our dad has been, kind of a big inspiration, whether it always paints him in a good light or not. It's like some of our childhood memories are like when someone, should have got their chops busted. Like one story that comes to my mind is, we were out. I think my brother and I were 10 and 12, and we were out at Perkins, and Dad sits down and looks at the picture on the menu, and it's like I think it's like roast beef or something, or
yeah, it was pot roast with peas and carrots.
Yeah, and I mean, so the picture makes it look like this splendid dish and everything, and so Dad orders that, and they bring him his pot roast, and in Dad's defense, the meal prepared looked absolutely nothing like the picture, and so Dad gets a little fired up, and just like that, boom, we were walking out of Perkins.
Yeah, no, there was never any discussion. There was a lot of walkouts, and at the time when I was a kid, I was like, man, this is a little severe, but I found myself doing that a couple times. When we first moved down to where we live, had one of our vehicles worked on at Midas, and it's kind of like the song says. I mean, we went in there for one thing, and we had just moved, and I didn't have a job yet, and went in there for one thing, and we come out, go to ask him what's wrong, and there's this whole list of things, and I was mad, and I usually don't lose my temper. I got kind of mad at the guy, and I slammed the door, and it was a big glass door, and the whole wall kind of shook. And, he was really mad at me. I said some words I shouldn't have said. He said some words he shouldn't have said. And it wasn't one of my finest moments, but, I can look back on that and kind of be humbled to try not to do it again, but also kind of laugh at it. It's like, we've all had those moments. Have you had anything like that, Russell? Anything you can think of?
Well, I'm sure I have, but I'll get to that.
You're cooler than me. You don't have the temper that I do. That I know that.
But well, yeah. I mean, I'll share something about me, so it's not just about you. But before I do, so I don't forget this, like Bud talked about his temper.
It's going to be something about me
and some of his shenanigans. So while in college one time, this was a hilarious thing. We decided, that we were going to ride our bikes to college,
to be healthy,
bikes to class to be healthy, and so
save gas money.
Yeah, we didn't have the fancy bikes. I mean, these are like $75 or $80 Walmart bikes. So we're biking to Walmart not biking to Walmart, biking to class, and we're biking together. Jason's a little bit behind me because you're in the street, so you're not like side by side, and we're talking and back and forth, having a little conversation going, and all of a sudden it's like I'm talking and don't hear him, and he's not responding. I look back, he's not there, so I stop. Well, right when I stop and get on my bike, I see Jason. He's cussing and yelling, and he has his bike lifted over his head, and he takes the bike and he chucks it into this guy's yard. And so I'm laughing so hard I go back, and apparently he went to pedal, and he went to stand up, and the chain jumped off, and he probably ended up straddling his bike and finding some pain that way. But yeah, that was pretty fun. But, I'll share one about me too. So, when you go to college, you buy your textbooks, and you buy them brand new, and you shell out like so much
it's a ridiculous
amount of money. And there are some classes that, I'll be honest, I mean, I think everybody who's went to college who has bought the textbook can honestly say they've literally never opened it at all. So that was the case with me with a couple of my textbooks in college. And there's always that end of the year where you take them, or end of semester, whenever you take your books back and, try to sell them back. The bookstore buys them back and you think you're making big money. So like I had this book. And
you're real hopeful too.
Oh,
you're
yeah.
Like, I spent, when the first time you do it, you're like, I spent $1,000 on these books. I'm getting paid.
Oh yeah, yeah. And and you're hoping that they, that some of them try to say, oh, this is the 19th edition. We're not using that next year. We're only using the 20th. Right. So you're stuck with it. You know that going in. But I literally had this thing of books that I probably spent like $300 on, and never took them out of the plastic. Like it was a 3-pack, never took them out of the plastic. Go back to the bookstore at the end of the semester, ready to sell them back, thinking that I'm going to get a large chunk of it. And they're like, oh, we'll buy those back. And it's like, we'll give you 25%. So, a little red Russell comes out. I'm like, they've never been used. I said, they're literally still in the packaging that I bought them. And you can see them on the shelf, like the same set of books.
Yeah,
like,
if you were to restock them, no one would know.
Take these over there, and you will make $300. And instead, you're wanting to give me like $25. So that was one. I mean, there have been plenty of times, I'm sure, that Jason can think where I've gotten a little frustrated. But it's like I don't usually make as big a scene, which is kind of interesting. But while we're on that, I'd like to share another story about Jason, if I could.
What's the story? Maybe I want to share it.
Well, what about what about the car when you were changing your oil?
Is it the oil change? Okay, I'll share the oil change.
That'd be fun.
I mean, these are classics, people, so you've got to hear them from the horse's mouth. That's another phrase. We're throwing them in there. They're like little Easter eggs for you. So
let's get down to brass tacks here on this story.
So, I mean,
No more beating around the bush, even though sometimes that could be fun.
I know it's not just people in the country, but I'll reference this stuff. Because we grew up in the country, there's a lot of things that we know how to do. We changed our own oil in our cars and everything. Dad taught us how to do that. And so I had a 2003 Firebird. And no, it would have been 2003, 1993. Oh, man. Had a 1993 Firebird. And so, I mean, it sits very low to the ground. And we were in college. We were poor, didn't have, money to go have it done, didn't necessarily have the proper equipment. So I had it pulled up on just two little, 2x4 blocks kind of sitting up there. I could barely fit under it. I mean, I'm a big guy now. I'm bigger than I was now, but I was still big then. And so I'm underneath this car in the driveway, and I'm trying to get to the oil filter. And there again, for anybody who's ever done this, when they're not under a pit where you can just look and have access, you're underneath there, you're squeezed in, you're trying to reach this oil filter, and it never, ever turns by hand. So, and sometimes you can't get a ridge on it.
When you tighten an oil filter, they tell you they only want it hand tight.
And
that's ironic.
Yeah.
Like
Whoever's tightening it,
if it's only hand tight, that you should be able to loosen it with your hand.
With a hand. Yeah. That doesn't work. So one trick that our dad taught us, it does work, but I'm going to give a disclaimer. It's messy. Is you get a screwdriver up in there and you crack through the oil filter. You've drained the pan at this point, so most of the oil's out.
Because only fancy people have the oil filter wrench.
Right.
That's for the upper crust.
Yeah, and I mean, in retrospect, it's the same amount of room, but you need this for the story. So, and it's true. You take a screwdriver and you pop it through the oil filter with a hammer, and then you have a little handle on the oil filter. I got to get it see over here, you can't see what I'm doing, but over here you can. And then you kind of use that screwdriver handle as a little bit of leverage to undo the oil filter. When you do that, though, a large amount of oil comes out on you, and even if you successfully get out without oil on your person, you're covered in oil on your arm. Well, this one, I popped the thing through, and it's enough oil hadn't came out of the pan or whatever, but I'm covered in oil. And then on top of that, your hands are slick, and I'm trying to turn it. I can't turn it. I am enraged at this point. I shimmy my way out from underneath the car with just enough patience to do that, and then I jump up and down like Yosemite Sam. I rip my stupid shirt off, and I yell and
It was like the Hulk. The Hulk,
Right.
He's like just tearing this thing off. And by that point, I've been watching for a while, just enjoying the humor behind it. But yeah, like the Hulk got angry, and he tears the shirt off.
Yep, I'm oiled up. I'm half naked. I'm cussing. And
if he had a better physique, ladies pay big money for things like that.
And I have the ability to Photoshop. We'll talk about that in a different episode, won't we?
Yeah. But sadly enough, he was only putting on this show for me, which
yeah,
it's just odd in it.
So the moral of the story is, for me, is losing your temper, just it never paints you in a good light. It gives you some good stories. I remember mornings waking up like on the ranch, and it was haying season. And, a lot of times you'd think, oh, you wake up in the country and you hear the birds singing, or maybe you hear the low rumble of cattle lowing. No, you hear bang, 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 beating on metal and welding, and a wailing of cuss words just echoing over the ranch. And there was always something that was breaking. And so I have that temper too. I have a very short fuse, but then I'm quick to forgive and forget about what I did. And the hard thing is the people around me aren't as quick to forgive and forget about what I did. So, I have that same kind of temper. But yeah, that was.
Oh yeah, and so one of the parts of Busted Chops too is, as we're moving on, as I've now studied up on the notes.
Here we go.
Like part of like Busted Chops at the end talks about getting arrested and trying to bust the officer's chops. and it's not ending well. So, this is a nice segue into the various times we have been pulled over by the 5-0.
Mm-hmm.
One time, we roofed in college, and this is in another song that we'll talk about later, but it was late at night in the summertime in Chadron. So it's like 8:30 at night. So it's just kind of, getting twilight. But I mean, this is after like 15 hours of roofing in the hot Nebraska summer sun. And so we have this old dump truck that, isn't the best, but a friend of mine, Eric Grimm, and I are driving in that. And then our other guy, Mike Source, as we called him, who was like the youth minister.
You got to keep your hustle on when you're a youth minister.
There are a lot, but anyhow, he's driving what now is my roofing pickup. It used to be Eric's. Well, it was his dad's. It's a 1966 Ford called White Fang. So anyhow, Mike Source is driving White Fang, and we're heading out of the job, and we just hit the highway, and we're not legal at all. I mean, our loads isn't covered. We're driving. Shingles are like flying out and all of that.
But that's like every shingling operation you ever see. That's how it is. There's always some borrowed dump truck, a wheat truck or something that's not even meant for it. I mean, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, we're driving, and we're in the truck in front, and I'm looking back in the mirror, and Nebraska State Patrol, we see this car, and it's like Nebraska State Patrol, and they turn their lights on and whip around like right on us. Well, I mean, Mike's
That's
in White
never
Fang.
Good. That's
yeah,
never
so
good.
I mean, like Mike's in White Fang, and he's just a little bit behind us. And so I'm looking back there. I'm like, man, like Eric and I are talking. We're like, man, we're getting pulled over. And look back, and like the state patroller is like literally right on Mike's bumper. And Mike just keeps on driving, and Mike looked back, and they're like, Mike has his arm out the window waving the state patroller around. So the police, so he pulled us both over, and the officer comes up, and and as they do, they're all serious, and literally so they come up to the truck and talk to us, and literally, the first thing they do that everybody knows. When you get pulled over, their question is, what?
Do you know why I stopped you?
There you go. Do you know why I stopped you? And, most of the time it's like, no. It's like, what's up, officer? And he's
Could
like,
be anything.
Well, he's like, he's like.
Could be any number of reasons.
Yeah. Like pick one. Because if you say something and you guess wrong.
Is it the illegal fireworks?
Yeah, because of me, shooting out the window at this herd of antelope as we're driving down the road with the spotlight. You don't want to like incriminate yourself, so you play it like, well, no, like what exactly did you see?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, you're driving, your pickup doesn't have taillights, the blinkers don't work, stuff's flying out, and we're covered in filth, and we're like, seriously, man, we just busted our hump for 15 hours and we're going to bust your chops because we're done with this. So, I mean, you're a little your patience is wearing thin. We just wanted to get home and get to bed. Well, the good thing was, this is where having a children's minister, on the crew comes in handy. So Mike Source, gets out of the pickup, and it's like any other person would probably like gotten shot.
Yeah, I didn't know about that.
Mike gets out of the pickup and like comes walking up, and we're like, holy crap, he's gonna get shot.
Mike's gonna die today.
So Mike's like, officer, we know that we were, stuff was flying out, and we're just trying to get home and all of this, and Mike even plays like the God card, he's like, I'm a minister at this church in town, and we're trying to do the Lord's work, helping, roof this guy's house. And I mean, he's pouring it on thick. But, so thank goodness Mike Source came through. I mean, we could have gotten, so many tickets in so many ways. But the officer says, he's like, I get it. Just drive safe on the way home. We're like, holy crap, Mike.
Yeah.
Well played.
Yeah, I didn't know about that. Mike getting out of the truck. That's crazy.
So yeah. So you can tell. What about the time you got pulled over? You've been pulled over some.
Yeah, I've been pulled over a few times, and I mean, it's been for stuff that was real stupid. When I got my second car, it was an Oldsmobile Tornado, '85 Tornado, and I was at Grover Rodeo, and there again, I don't know how big this audience will get, but Grover Rodeo it's the biggest little rodeo in the West. It's a small town rodeo that happens
So
every
it
weekend.
says.
It happens every Father's Day weekend, and I had driven in, and I still had the in transit or the temporary license plate tag on the window, and the Oldsmobile Tornado has a little back window about this tall, and it was tinted, so it was hard to see, but
It sounds like a fancy car. You're like, oh, sweet tinted windows,
yeah, when you hear
sporty.
Let me say this. What do you think when I say moonroof?
Yeah.
Moonroof.
You're thinking there's a good time there.
Yeah. So they were just looking to stop drunk people because cops never came to Grover, ever. Grover was, 60 miles from Greeley, Colorado, and cops never came to Grover. And but they did at Grover Rodeo because they knew that's where they could get tons of drunk people. They could make their money. And
speed traps.
Yeah, and they stopped me, and I don't drink, and well, I didn't at the time. I mean, I don't drink a lot now. I'm digging.
He's not drinking currently, is what he means.
I'm not drinking now.
He's not drinking now.
But that they stopped me, and I mean, they said, they had to come up with an excuse, and they're like, "Oh, it's kind of hard to see your temporary plate," and they let me go. I was stopped one time in Chadron. I was coming home from my girlfriend's house, my wife now, and it was like 2:00 in the morning, and it's earmuffs, mom and dad. It was 35 miles hour zone. I was going 55 mile an hour downtown Chadron. Luckily, it's a small town, nighttime, but I got stopped. I was going 20 miles an hour over the speed limit, and they just let me off with a warning because of this. Now, Russell hasn't had such good luck with the cops and getting stopped. Well, I don't think he's had a couple of big tickets there on his way back to Chadron.
Well, yeah, in college, I got pulled over a couple times, but as one of our songs talks about, we were in pretty tight with the Chadron PD. Knew a lot of the officers on the force, and they knew us, so it's never like we did anything too wild and crazy, but
yeah,
they were able to look the other way. So one time I got pulled over in Chadron. I had a 94 Dodge pickup that I bought from Dad.
Plain Jane.
Yeah, plain Jane.
Factory.
Yeah.
No bells and whistles.
Crank down windows, no AC.
Right, yep.
And a driver's seat that smelled terrible for a variety of reasons that we won't divulge right now. But anyhow.
Like father, like son.
That's right. So, it was a late Saturday afternoon. I think our previous podcast talked about branding, and I was actually coming from, the friends that we helped brand. And so I'm parked at the four-way stop. There's literally no one around. I can see the Chadron cop right behind me, and it's a 5-speed, so it could peel out, but it's like, I don't. I just put it in gear and, stop and drive through. Nothing illegal. As soon as I start driving through the four-way, the guy's lights come on and pulls me over, and he walks up, and the first thing he says to me is, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" Which I was expecting.
You had an answer for it.
Yeah, he comes.
No reason.
I was prepared for that, but so he pulls me over. I hand crank down my window, and he's like, "Are you mad?" Like, that's the first thing he told me. He's like, "Are you mad?" And I'm like, "No, like, should I be?" Just kind of asking a question that might have come off a little sarcastic. But he's like, "Well, yeah." He's like, "Coming through that stop sign, you peeled out and you burned rubber." I'm like, "Even though I know this pickup can do this, sir," I'm like, "I'm pretty sure that did not happen because I saw you behind me." I said, "I may not be the most intelligent guy around, But I said, I'm not going to peel out in front of a cop. There's a story for another time about some friends of ours who did do that in front of a cop in the same pickup. But anyhow, he's like, the back end of your pickup came up off the ground and you left rubber on the asphalt. So here's where I give him a little bit of a physics lesson. I said, I don't really think, you get it. But I said, if the back end of my pickup came up off the asphalt, I said, how can I leave rubber on said asphalt?
You got him.
Yeah. So he gave me a warning for exhibition of speed is what he called it. So I tell you this story to tell you this next story when I got a little more irate. So then I did have like a tail light out in the pickup, and I knew that. So later, this was like a couple nights later, I'm driving through town, and lo and behold, I get pulled over again. So this is like,
is it same cop, or different cop?
No, just this was my buddy. So the officer comes up, and I'm like rolling down the window. I'm like, holy crap, what is it now? Well, it was our good buddy from Common Sense.
Let's not name names.
Oh, no, scratch that. Scratch that.
It's like when Russell tells me stories about kids at school.
His name
let's just call him.
We'll just call him Samsonite.
Yeah.
So we'll say, Samsonite came up and he's like, hey. And I'm like, man, I said, this is not the time. I said, I just got pulled over 2 days ago, getting a warning for exhibition of speed. And I told him that story, and he thought that was hilarious. And so, and I said, so what? I said, what? I said, I'm not in a good mood. I'm like, what is this about? And he's like, I just wanted to let you know you do have a tail light out. And, so he was laughing and just told me, he's like, you need to get that fixed. So, you get off okay then, but then, so the pricey one was in a speed trap here just this past summer, coming back to Shadron. And, I get to off of 385 coming there where you go on the T at Big Bats and you go left because he hadn't, was planning to head on.
And he's telling you all this like you know exactly where he's talking about. Now, it's probably
I'm using
true.
my hands. I'm pointing. I said, you go to the left. Go to the left.
I'm just laughing because, you're right. Probably maybe 10 people are listening to this that know where this is. If anybody outside those 10 people, they don't know anywhere. They don't have any idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. So anyhow,
continue.
Yeah. So it's like
I'm busting his chops.
Busted chops. Yeah. So I stop at the stoplight or stop sign. Complete stop. I turn left, and I see there are a lot of cops around. It's Memorial Day weekend, so that's the big time of year for them. And I have a bright orange pickup with out-of-state plates, and I'm not hot rodding or anything. I know it's 45, but it's one of those where you are going 45, and then there's a sign that says 65. So I do what probably 98% of you would have done. You're driving 45, but you're working up to 65 so that when you hit the sign that says 65, you're going 65.
Right.
So I was literally, and the officer even said it, 100 feet from the 65 mile an hour sign. So I was going 65, 100 feet before technically I was legally supposed to. And I see the officer whip around, pulls me over, and he asks, he's like, do you know why I pulled you over? I'm like, not a clue. And he's like, well, you were going, 65. I'm like, yep. It's the sign's right there. It says 65. And he's like, but you're still in the 45. And I said, are you kidding me? I said, and he's like, yep. He's like, another 100 feet, you'd have been good. And I'm like, so 100 feet here, and I was thinking that I'd get a warning. Oh no, my friend, not that day. And so, that was a 20 mile an hour over ticket. And yeah, it was a pricey one, but I told him, I'm like, are you serious? It's like, who doesn't build up speed to get to, where they are, you know? I don't know anyone who drives like 45 until they hit that, and then when they hit 65, start speeding up.
A lot of times though now I do that because of what's happened to you, and I find it feels very weird to slow down that much and be going that slow before you hit the speed limit sign. So you're a cautionary tale. So
and
let this be a lesson to people.
If the 5 listeners take away anything from this conversation, know that the cop that let me off, his name was not what I said it was. His name was Samsonite. And 2, know that this apparently is a big thing, and technically is speeding, because even though I was building up speed, I was still only in the 45 zone. So that was a fun time. And I was going to play hey, I'm a Chadron State grad, I should have had like the Go Eagles, but
yeah,
I think having the bright orange pickup, out of state plates, I'm fairly certain it was easy to track me down, because I can guarantee that, I wasn't the only one who did exactly what I did.
Sure.
And I would assume that any Nebraska 69 plates weren't getting pulled over.
Sure.
So that's my beef with the Chadron PD, if anyone from Chadron is listening to this podcast.
But it's been 20 years, so all of those people have moved on to bigger and better things, I'm sure.
Except I found out that Samsonite is the one in charge.
Oh my gosh, okay.
Yeah, and so funny story, Mom, where you're listening. So it took me a while, and maybe I still haven't gotten over it. As Mom has said, she's like, let it go. So I was going to contact Samsonite and file a complaint and be like, hey, Samsonite, take care of this for me, please. And Mom's like, you'd probably better not do that.
Yeah,
and
you don't want to call in any favors.
Hindsight, I don't want to get in trouble for like trying to persuade an officer of the law to accommodate me. But, like I said, Chadron PD, if you are listening, you got the Bobcat. And the Bobcat wasn't impressed.
We're starting to get a little long, so let's move on. Let's talk about ketchup.
All right.
One of the verses talks about us going into Hardee's, and there again, the pimple-faced punks are not impressed by us or our love of ketchup. I wish we had Travis Humble on this podcast. What would he say, Russell, if he was referencing you specifically and ketchup?
Oh, he makes fun of my love of ketchup all the time, and it's not false to
Russell,
say that
your blood type is ketchup.
Yeah, your blood type is ketchup. But I think my blood type is actually catsup.
Right. Fancy.
Fancy catsup. But I mean, it did happen that while in college I had a bottle of ketchup in the pickup. You never knew when you needed it. If you get caught out in a blizzard, that's your tomato soup. You heat that, boom.
Right.
Other people, they're starving and cold, and I'm warm and toasty with my tomato soup.
Or you lead the bad guys away by creating a fake blood trail out of ketchup. I mean,
yeah. Or if I got pulled over another time, I mean, you squirt that officer in the eye with the ketchup and you go. I wouldn't recommend.
I was going to say you squirt on yourself and
that.
make it look like you're injured, so he feels some sympathy, and that way you just say I was speeding to the hospital or something.
Yeah, that's probably a smarter move.
But then he's like, what's that delicious aroma? It smells like tomatoes, vinegar, and a blend of spices.
It smells like fancy catsup.
Yeah.
Well, my best friend tells me that I my blood type is catsup, sir. So, stands to reason.
Yeah. So, I mean, our family loves ketchup. I mean, Mom and Dad both love ketchup. I think Mom loves ketchup almost as much as Russell. I don't eat as much ketchup. You don't eat as much ketchup as we used to, but we used to eat a lot of ketchup.
You kind of phase it down. You realize with your maturity, your palate becomes, a little more refined.
Yeah.
So
I don't from catsup to Metamucil.
That's right. Yeah, if they could only put Metamucil in catsup, that's a whole other ball game there.
Yeah.
Who knows what would happen?
But I remember we'd get the weirdest looks because when you go to fast food places, especially, they give those little tiny paper cups. It's like a thimble full of ketchup,
And
it's
could
like
cover one fry.
That's not.
Fry.
Yeah, it's not even enough to cover one fry. Yeah, and so then I'm not gonna say that we invented this, but at the same time, I am saying we invented this concept.
It's pretty safe to say that we are the creators of this thing.
Yeah. Do you wanna take it away? Share our patent pending secret. Okay, it's all right. Okay. So I'll tell you. Well, okay, that's a little inside joke there. So the little ketchup condiments, little things are not big enough. So when we go at fast food, we want ketchup, man, ketchup. So we'll take a beverage lid, like a large beverage lid, and you'll run that under the little squirt, and you'll just fill that whole thing until it mounds up and starts to fall and covers the edges before it spills out over the edges. And you take that beverage lid filled with ketchup to your table, and you enjoy a comfortable, delicious meal full of ketchup and fries.
But a little thing, sorry to interject, but you want to put a napkin down because the straw hole will leak onto your hand. So you put a napkin down and then the lid. So
yes,
that way,
I forgot about that.
You're being thoughtful to the people who have to clean your table. So that way the napkin keeps the table clean as well as your hand. Just those little those attention to details.
Right. So the people that we come into contact that see us do that, they just think we're weird and they give us a bunch of grief for it. And then also, so if you don't have access to a beverage lid, or if you're taking it to go, you can't really do that. So what do you get to get the ketchup packets? They're barely better. So what I will do is I will ask for a handful of ketchup, like a handful. And I remember one time we were in Buffalo. Was that when that happened?
Probably.
We were in Buffalo, Wyoming, and we had been fishing. And when I say fishing, we had went out on the boat for a couple hours, caught nothing, and decided to leave. And we were getting breakfast at a McDonald's there. But there was a Eastern European guy there, sounded Russian, and I said, "Can I get a handful of ketchup?" Because at this point, they stopped letting you get your own ketchup because they realized there were people like us that took too much ketchup. And so they started to hoard the ketchup, and then you had to go ask for it. You had to let your pride go and be shamed by them as you asked them for way too much ketchup. And I said, "Can I have a handful of ketchup?" And he says, "What is handful?" And I said, like handful. And then he finally got it, and I walked out embarrassed and with my head hung down, but with a handful of ketchup. And this happened here not too long ago.
Why would you hang your head, man? You had a glorious handful of the sweet nectar of
red
the gods.
Gold, yeah, red gold. Well, and then something similar happened just a couple weeks ago. We were at McDonald's again. Maybe it's McDonald's has a stingy ketchup policy. And I asked him
They're cracking down on everything,
I know. I asked him for 2 handfuls because it wasn't just for me. It was for me and my family at our table. And I said,
one handful's for him, one handful the family shares. Right. Here's a handful, divide them amongst yourselves. Here's my ketchup.
So I said, "Can I have 2 handfuls of ketchup?" And they're like, "What, like 2 packets?" And I was like, "No."
How small are your hands, jerkwad?
Yeah, 2. Give me 2 handfuls. So again, I had to make the gesture. No, 2 handfuls. So that's the story.
Like, here are my hands. Right? Add ketchup until they fall out.
Yeah, until they're full.
And then we will be done.
Right. And then I'll be back for more ketchup. Just hang tight.
My hand holds 13 ketchup packets. So if someone comes up and asks for a handful, 13 ketchup packets is what you give them.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's basic math.
See, I'm pretty sure that since COVID now they don't eat because it's all packets. I think the pump has been done away with. No more pumping your own ketchup.
Yeah, and I mean, when you get to think about it, the pump is kind of nasty because it's never really high quality ketchup. Like they water it down, like it's like just comes out like in real runny. Like you want a nice thick ketchup, to dip the fry in it and it scoops up the ketchup. But that watery ketchup, it's just like it's too much work.
You expect a classier ketchup from McDonald's,
right? Exactly.
I mean, a high end joint like that. You don't want to pump your own ketchup.
Right.
I don't even want to squeeze my own. I don't even want to squeeze my own packet. It's like, please, sir, may you tear the corner?
Bring your finest man to the table.
I need my packet of ketchup squeezed, please.
Right.
Is that really too much to ask? I mean, service has kind of fallen by the wayside nowadays. So,
which I
bring
think
back
that's
the full service. You don't have to chew my food for me. But I mean, is it too much to ask? Or am I, being too out of line to say, hey, would you please, open my ketchup packet and apply it liberally to these French fries?
Most people would say that's too much, but most people aren't sitting here talking with you. So I agree.
Good. Yeah. I mean, I haven't actually done that, It's like when you go into McDonald's, because they make it like it's a classic restaurant. I know we're getting off topic, but you walk in there and they're like, is it dine in or carry out?
All right.
And it's like, I have a reservation. I plan to dine in this evening.
I'll sit at the dirty table over there with the kids' cheesy handprints on it, please.
Yes. Table for 2 with 3 handfuls of ketchup.
Well, I think that's a good place to leave the podcast for tonight.
Yep. Leave them laughing. Or leave them angry, or leave them confused,
or leave them hoping that they could laugh at some point.
That's right. So yeah, that's podcast number 2, Busted Chops. Do you know why? We busted them.
Because we busted them. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Join us next time for the episode name is Sup Dude. We'll learn more about that next time.
Sup, dude.
I'm Bud Catfish Dickerson.
I'm Biff Bobcat Rogers, signing out.